Well, hey folks, I'm Josh. Welcome back to the shop. Today for SAK Whittling, we're gonna make some stickmen. And stickmen are just faces carved in a stick. You could put these into just a piece of whatever hardwood you find out in your yard or you snag along the side of the road, whatever the case might be. Most of the ones I've made are in a branch that is about as big around as my thumb, maybe a little bit smaller. You could do this in a dowel, you could do it in a little piece of basswood, you could do it in a pencil if you were really delicate. So I'm gonna do it in another piece of wood, just another stick from the yard. I believe I may have taken this from an ash tree. I don't actually quite remember what it came off of. Doesn't really matter as long as it's hardwood and not super sappy like a pine tree or softwood like that. And this is definitely easier if the wood is green, but it's not absolutely essential. You can carve it in something hard and dry and still have some pretty good effects. So I'm gonna focus on the faces that look a little bit more like this or this, these kinds of things, less like this, because really you just look at that and you know how to do that. A couple of stop cuts and use the branch for his nose there. And that's not terribly hard. And this could go at the top of a walking stick. It could be a little guy, like these guys that kind of cut like little feet into him, and so he's like a little dude. So top of a walking stick, or just something to play with, whatever, for your kids or grandkids or whoever you tend to whittle for. And the stick doesn't have to be perfectly straight. This one's got a nice curve to him, and I think that gives him a little character, kind of a little bit of goofiness. I don't know. So let's get these guys out of the way. Find yourself a stick or a dowel or something to carve on and open your kit. And the first thing you gotta decide is, do you wanna leave the bark on or take the bark off? With this piece of wood, I expect that if I tried to leave the bark on, it would just dry and fall off later anyway. So I'm going to quickly remove the bark. You want a piece of wood that's long enough for you to hang on to, because you're gonna be making some interesting cuts. If you're fairly new to whittling, it's probably a little bit safer to leave yourself with something, maybe about 4 or 5 inches long, and actually carve the face in the middle of it so that you have something to hold on to at the top and at the bottom. If you're feeling a little more advanced, you can carve your face really close to the top. It's just a little bit more challenging because you have to have some different grips to cut out the eyes and things like that. So, if you're just starting out, maybe carve that face in the middle, and then it's easy to cut the top off and the bottom off wherever you want. And if you're just carving in a stick from your yard, the waste is really not a big deal. So anyway, time to remove some bark. All right, now it's time for a little bit of layout. If you have a clear piece of wood like this, then you're probably gonna carve all the features with your knife. If you wanna try to incorporate branches or knobs or things like that, kind of think about that at this point. Knobs, branches, or knots, stuff like that, so that you can maybe incorporate that into your shape. But we're gonna try to go for, something like one of these guys. So fairly clear piece of wood. And I'm just gonna kind of lay this out. Now, I probably wouldn't lay it out if I was just doing this on my own, but for demonstration's sake, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of see what we're gonna do. One thing that makes a difference in the way your guy looks is the direction that you make the eyes. So this one, he looks a little bit more angry, at least I think he does. His eyes are formed with a stop cut, and then you cut up into it, as opposed to this one, who the stop cut is here and then I cut down into it, and that kind of makes for a happier face. Now obviously this guy is smiling, so that makes a difference too. And then this guy's eyes are actually made with kind of like a V cut. So that's another feature you can go for. So we're gonna make a happy looking guy on this stick. So find the spot on the stick where you wanna make it, and like I said, I'm gonna actually carve my face in the middle, and then I'll cut the top and the bottom off so I have somewhere to hang on to. And I'm gonna put my face right here. So I'm gonna do line there for the eye, another line there for the eye, and that's gonna go kind of like this, because it's gonna be that kind of an eye where I come down into that cut. And this is a pretty green piece of wood, so it's gonna be a little bit easier to carve than if you have something dry. Then that definitely helps. And I'm gonna go kind of a long nose like this, and then we're gonna give him a smile, and it's gonna be kind of close to his nose. And we're gonna come up at the corners, something like that. And most of those lines will be erased just as we go along. So the first thing I like to do is the eyes. So those are stop cuts. We push in. And see, I gave myself a nice long piece to hang on to so that that's not hard to make those stop cuts. And you just want to cut in there. Right, there's one. Right, we can clean that up a little bit more as it dries a little. As it sits with the bark off, it'll dry a little as we go. Next, we're going to outline the nose. So I like to go at the bottom of the nose first, and don't push too hard, because if you overcut the nose, you'll end up with like a crease line into his cheek. So try not to push past the nose as you're kind of outlining him here. And the tricky spot is at the bottom. Once you get rounded over, bring your knife tip up and you just kind of follow that line that you made into the bottom of the eye, like that. Do the same over here. You might have to do it twice if you didn't get quite deep enough. There we go. And now, cut up into that. Now we'll clean up his nose a little bit here. And now let's get the mouth started, and then we'll go out back and do some finishing cuts. So the mouth starts out as just a stop cut. And to make it look like he's smiling, all you do is come over here to the edge and bring up the corner a bit. And try to not put your knife past where it's going to be, because if you go down in here, obviously you're going to end up with a dent in your mouth, which you probably don't want. So try to go up in that space. Same thing over here. Bring the corners up a little bit. And then kind of round that off a little bit. Looking pretty good. And then I like to actually kind of make the lip go all the way up into the nose in a nice smooth slope. So you can kind of see this guy's got that going on. This guy has like almost no lip. His nose is like immediately there. But anyway, I like the way it looks if you come into it a little bit, almost immediately from the nose, or excuse me, almost immediately from the mouth right here. You just start sloping it a little bit towards the nose, and it makes for a little bit smoother face, I think. Oh, we're just gonna go up here and clean things up a little bit. It doesn't quite matter if you're perfectly symmetrical on both sides. Sometimes a little bit of asymmetry is fun. It makes it look like you have some kind of emotion, or I don't know, less like a machine made it and more like a guy sitting with a Swiss Army knife made it. So now we've got, that's a pretty basic face. You can do a few things. You can adjust as you go a little, and experiment around with eye shape and nose length and how you curve the mouth, and you can do like a V cut and have more of a angry looking face. You can do all kinds of things to get all kinds of different faces, and then when you're done, decide how long you want it to be. If you want to cut the top off, that's not anything hard. You want to make it a longer like body space, and then you could give him some feet. It's not too hard to carve little feet in the bottom, but it's a pretty simple face that you can do. Doesn't take long. And here, we'll cut this guy off quick. It's raining outside, so I can't go cut him outside on a stump, so we're gonna have to get a bench hook or something to hold on to it. All right, so got a little, just a bench hook here that I can use to push up against and make this cut. So I'm gonna cut for the top of his head right about here. You know, you can do a sloped head, you can do kind of a coney head, you can do whatever you want. I'm just gonna make his head kind of flat. So I'm gonna make this cut here. All right, now I'm gonna clean that up a little bit. Just kind of put a little bevel on that edge, a little chamfer there. Get rid of the saw marks on the top. There we go. Oh, that's pretty good. Now for the bottom. Where should we cut it at? Should we do right? Oh, right about there. All right, now clean up this bottom on this side. And then flatten this off maybe. Do I want him to stand up? Oh, he stands pretty good right now. So let's just flatten that a little bit. Take the saw marks off. Looks pretty good. Now, do I want to make it look like he has little feet right here? Maybe? Why not? I'm actually going to start that with the saw. Just doing some pull cuts. All right, well, there you go. Got a nice little stick man with, looks like he's got little feet maybe, I don't know. He can stand up nice, and he has a bunch of friends because I've carved many little stick men, and as he dries, he will harden up a little bit, and you know, he may split, he may not, depends on the stick. Some of these crack, some of them don't as they dry. It just depends on your wood and how green and wet everything is. But anyway, I hope that you found that useful. It's a nice little practice face that you can kind of play around with and change the features of so that you can get all kinds of different feelings and emotions out of your little guys. And I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks a bunch for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.